Good morning. Hi, do you own a piece of property in the state of Maine, or maybe you were left one from an inheritance from a family member? Well, if so, congratulations. I'm very happy for you. Owning land can be very fulfilling, taking care of a piece of the earth, managing the forest, growing vegetables on your farm, whatever. But every once in a while, as we all know, life can happen. The kids need to go to college. You got to pay for that. So you've been thinking about selling your property. Maybe you want to buy a piece of property much larger than what you own now and take advantage of tax breaks by selling this piece and buying the next one. Hi, I'm Phil McPhail with United Country Lifestyle Properties in Maine. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to sell your property on your own if you choose to do that. And stick around to the end of the video because we're going to give you some more information about how to get this done. However, if you're watching this video and you have no interest in doing a DIY and you'd just like to talk to a real estate agent about your land that you own here in the state of Maine, give me a call at 207-290-0372. For the rest of you, stick around. We're going to talk about how to get your property sold for the most money in a reasonable amount of time. Before I get started in talking about how to sell the property, I want to just put out one caveat for this video. I'm only licensed in the state of Maine, so if you're watching this from another state, a lot of this information will be universal. However, there's no way, well, number one, I don't know the laws in your state because I'm only licensed here in the state of Maine. And there may be nuances to your market that I wouldn't be familiar with and therefore couldn't give you the best advice. However, I am affiliated with the Realtors Land Institute, which is a national organization of land specialists across the United States. Give me a call at 207-290-0372. I'd be happy to set you up with one of the experts I know in your state. Well, folks, the first thing I want to talk about is determining highest and best use. And people say, well, what is that? Well, highest and best use is the use that is physically possible, legally permissible, financially feasible, and maximally productive. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about physically possible at first. Uses for such as residential use, commercial, recreational uses, mixed commercial uses, whatever, okay, will be determined by the property itself. Slopes, your soils, your access for ingress and egress, as well as utilities if that's necessary. So that's the physically possible part. So you got to take a hard look at your property and say, what can I do with this property? Legally permissible. What does that mean? Well, does the town or the state have a zoning ordinance that would restrict certain uses of the property? A good example of that here in the state of Maine would be the shoreland zone. If it's a waterfront property, you need to know some things about what you legally and can and cannot do within that 250-foot zone. I've talked about the shoreland zone in previous videos, but that's just one example. Financially feasible. Does it make sense? If you do this project and you invest the money in it, is there going to be a return on investment? You definitely want to look at that before you dive headlong into a subdivision, say, and find out later that it's going to cost you more to develop the lots than you could possibly sell them for. And that brings me to maximally productive. That is the best use of the property, but not taking on too much risk. So you have to weigh the risk and reward there for return on investment. Why do you want to know what the highest and best use is? Well, it's going to determine probably who your buyer is going to be and how you're going to market the property. The second thing you're going to want to do is determine an asking price. And if you're new to sales or selling any kind of real estate, you may or may not know how that process is done. So I'm going to recommend you find yourself a good certified general appraiser who has some land experience in appraising just land and contact them. Or you can talk to a real estate agent that has knowledge of land and understands the nuances there. You can probably get them done. The cost of an appraisal will probably run you $750 to $1,000. A broker price opinion is probably going to be less than that. Now, why is that important? Well, if you don't price the property correctly, two very bad things can happen. Number one, if you underprice it, obviously you're going to leave money on the table, so you're going to take less than you probably should have for the property. And number two, if you overprice it, which can potentially be worse, depending on the market conditions at the time, you may find yourself stigmatizing your property. If it's out there on the internet, in print, or wherever for a long period of time, people will start wondering what's wrong with it. So you may not sell it at all, and when you do, you may end up taking less than you would if you priced it correctly to begin with. I hope that makes sense. That's a big pitfall that a lot of people fall into. Next step will be, let's get your land ready for the market. What do you need to do? Well, you might want to consider some improvements. If it's lacking a driveway, installing a driveway, making access onto the property off a highway or another road easier will make it more appealing. Other things you might want to consider are clearings, thinning areas for views. If you've got fields on the property, you might want to keep them mowed up nicely. So that would be the improvement section. Next would be entitlements. Entitlements are things that you would have done, such as a building permit from the town, or maybe a rezone if you determine the highest and best use is commercial or some sort of mixed commercial, and it makes sense to the town. You may have to get a zoning variance or get a rezone done. Those would be entitlements and something to consider as you're marketing the property. If it's a subdivision you're looking to do, you're going to have to get a survey done, so that's important. And finally, especially if you inherited the property, maybe or when you purchased it, you didn't have any title work done. Most people, when they purchase, do get title work done. So it's possible. I see it all the time where people will buy property and not have a title check. Get that done ahead of time. If it's not done already, if you inherited the property, make sure that the title is fine. There's no issues there that will mess up a transaction when you're in the middle of it, because there's nothing that'll spoil your day more than finding out there's some heir that needs to sign a deed and you don't know that until 2 days before the closing. So that's the last of my advice on getting the property ready. Next would be get yourself ready for the property. And what I mean by that is you need to do a little bit of due diligence on your own and probably hire some professionals. There's good real estate attorneys out there. Some of them specialize in land. You should find one and hire them or employ them for a service. Look for a good lender. There's certain lenders will not give money on land no matter what you do. There are a number of lenders out there that are very good at lending on land. So find one, talk to them, see if you can send buyers to them once you find a buyer. Again, we talked about a surveyor. Find yourself a surveyor that's reputable and available, if possible, to help you get that job done. And also, you want to find yourself a good site evaluator for soils, possibly wetland studies if that's necessary, and other professionals depending on what you decide the highest and best use of the property is. Hey, is this information I've shared with you so far been helpful? If so, please give us a like down here below on the video and hit that subscription button on that bell. Put that on all notifications so you don't miss the next video we put out. Okay, so we've got that done. The next step will be market the property. And there's a lot of things you can do. We're going to talk about online marketing first. So the first step you probably ought to do is develop a website for your property so that you can show nice photos, a place to have videos landed, all the details that you want people to know, and hopefully find your property online. And that brings me to the next step. If you are on the internet and you do a search, you don't really care what's on page 4, 5, or 4,000 of the search results. So do some research, Google search your type of property, state of Maine, where it is, what it is, its potential uses, and see what you get for results, such as for, timberland for sale in Maine or farmland for sale in Maine, and see which websites come up on that top 8 to 10 listings. Whichever ones they are, pick them, pick a couple of them, and buy some advertisement on that site. And then there's print advertising. And what can you do there? Well, you can send postcards, flyers. You can buy targeted lists of people once you determine who you think your most likely buyer will be, and direct mail to these people. It can be very expensive, so you want to make sure you get a good list of potential buyers before you fire out a bunch of postcards. Those are your two avenues for advertising. Next, I want to talk about photos. If you're not a photographer, consider hiring a professional photographer who has some experience in landscapes. The first thing people see are your photos when they come online, and if they don't look good, or you got some ugly map there that's been photocopied and that's your leading photo, you're not going to appeal to much of an audience with that. And then next would be video. And this is the number one most powerful marketing tool there is video. And that's why you're watching me here today. That is something that if you don't know how to do it, you should hire a company to do this for you. You can get editors out there. You can use Fiverr or other types of things to have the footage edited. So if you're good in front of the camera and you feel comfortable doing that, do that and then hire that out for editing. And finally, a very important thing would be an information package on your property. Things you might want to include there are your photos, some description of the property, local area information, zoning information, required state disclosures. If that's applicable, you might want to make sure those are in there so you cover yourself on the law. Put that in a nice looking package. And if you'd like to see one of those to see how we do it, feel free to give me a call and I'll send you one by email. Okay, so we've determined the highest and best use. We've come up with an asking price. We've marketed the property. You got the property ready for sale. Now what do? Well, someone calls you up, and if you're not available during the day, if you're working on another job, you probably you might want to consider having some sort of answering service collect calls so you don't miss a potential buyer and you can get back to them on your first break. Okay, so you've got a phone call on the property and you're ready to show it to a potential buyer. Here's what I don't recommend you do. Do not meet somebody you've never met in your life out in the woods on your property or anywhere else for that matter. I would recommend for your safety, we as realtors, we know this and we're cautious of it, but meet in a public space, maybe another person with you would be a good idea, a friend, a spouse, whatever. But just think safety. You're dealing with people coming from all over the place and you have no idea who they are. So if you want to check them out, you might be able to find somebody that could run a background check before you meet with people. That's what we do. But however you want to do it, just keep that in mind. So while you're showing the property, what do? Well, hopefully you know your land pretty well and you've already scoped out some of the nicest features, the road frontage, boundary lines if they're marked, nice view places. Show them everything about the property and, see if they ask you any questions and try to answer those if you can. So now you've shown the property to them, they love it, they want to buy it. What are you going to do? Well, hopefully you're going to negotiate a deal that works for you. So if you've taken my advice from earlier and you've hired an attorney, you've already got a purchase and sales agreement. That's the first thing you're going to pull out. You're going to need their name and address and all the information about an offer. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you certainly could write down the terms on a napkin and give it to your attorney and ask them to draft the offer. And that's probably what I'd recommend you do if you've never done this before. So you got the contract all written, you come to an agreement. Next, let's send it over to a title company. Hopefully your lawyer is going to handle your deed prep in your side of the transaction. You may want to have a list for your buyers of title companies and or lawyers that do land, and pick one so that you can send all this information to their attorney so that they can then process this deal and get it to a closing. All right, so during the under contract process or the escrow period, as we call it in real estate, you're going to make sure you follow up with those attorneys so that they're getting their work done. If you got a lender involved, you're going to probably have to get an appraiser out on the site, and you can make sure you can get them the information they need, or at least to the buyer's lender who will provide it to them. So, thank you for watching this video so far. That's kind of it in a nutshell, and I know that's a whole lot of material, so I'm going to give you an opportunity here. If you're interested in having a free consultation with me, I'm going to have you set it up on a calendar here in this video. You can click this link and that'll take you there. And I'd love to talk to you. I'll give you a 20-minute free consultation to see if I can help you. If I can help you, I'll let you know. If I don't think I can help you, I'll tell you that as well. And the other offer I wanted to tell you about is if you want a link to our seller's guide that kind of outlines what we've discussed here today, you can scan this QR code here on the screen and go to the website there. That'll take you there. or you can call me or email me at the email address here. If that's easier for you, I will send you a direct link to the seller's guide that we have that kind of outlines this process for you. Well, I thank you again for watching. If you got any questions, again, my number's here on the screen. Give me a ring. Thanks again. Have a great day.